What is up, YouTube? Four Leaf Cards here. Thanks so much for clicking. This kind of jumped out at me. I had 100 subscribers and 100 videos, and I always had a thought in my mind that for video 101, it just made sense to make some sort of an educational video. So got a bunch of other videos I got to get out there, so I got to do this 101 here to fit it in as the 101st video. So I thought, let's just talk about collecting cards and getting back into it. It's something that I'm right in the middle of, and I just wanted to share some thoughts and maybe if you're coming back into it, just give you a little bit of a heads up, I guess. And if you're in it already, just hear my thoughts on it, I guess. Really appreciate you taking some time either way. So I always joke with people about certain things, but if you're collecting cards to do it as investing, I've got some words of wisdom on that right out of the gate. If you want to make $1 million collecting cards, start with 2 million. I know it's a corny joke, but we always talk about that in other parts of business. But it's pretty easy to lose money and get really sidetracked and get yourself in trouble. And so hopefully I've got some words of wisdom here that might help a little bit with getting a little too crazy, mostly because I got a little too crazy. It's a wild world. There's so many new things, and you can chase a lot of stuff down rabbit holes and get yourself in trouble. But anyway, typical story. I'll just give that a little bit. My story is collected cards as a kid in the 80s. I'm pretty sure everybody's dad of my generation had cards in the 50s, and they put them in their bicycle spokes, and they played card games where you threw them up against the wall so they were trashed, and then their mothers threw them out, and they said, I wish if I had only kept that Mickey Mantle, and all those other cards, we'd have $1 million worth of cards, and we'd be able to retire. So we're going to buy you cards, and we're going to keep them in the box, and we're never going to touch them. We're never going to look at them. We're going to put them away, and you're going to retire on them someday. And everybody bought their kids' cards in the 80s, and the company said, well, if you're going to buy them, we'll make more. And if you're going to buy more, we'll make more and more and more and more and more. And that's how we got the junk wax era. And that's what happened. But you look at the 80s. I mean, there's some really awesome players in there, and that you can get pretty reasonable now because they made $1 million or $3 million of each card. So I took a break 94 with the strike. I was kind of getting into high school, probably worried a little bit more about sports and chasing girls and getting ready for college and all that stuff, and kind of left the hobby and was just in work. This was like 20 something years ago, driving for work down the road one day. I've got a little video on that too. Check it out if you want to. But just a colleague of mine driving by saw a card shop, said going out of business, and we both decided that we'd swing it around and go in there, and they had all kinds of cards from the 80s, unopened packs. And we probably spent more than I should have, but I don't know, 30, 40 bucks on just old wax, unopened packs. And we sat on the tailgate of the truck and opened them up and traded them just like we were little again. And I caught the bug. So that's kind of my story. And a little bit, I've got kids now, and my son's kind of getting into sports. And so it's probably accelerated that a little bit. Probably that's a similar concept with some of you guys. You're in your 30s or 40s or whatever. And you got kids that are, getting into sports, and I used to collect cards. Let's get back into it. And if you step in, it gets a little crazy. So what blows my mind right now is that there's people that are paying like $15,000 for a card. Now, granted, it's like a 1 of 1 or 1 of 5, some special refractor with an autograph, but it's of somebody that hasn't even played in the majors yet. So the prospecting is what we call that. Is just outrageous. And I've dipped my toes, and that's some of my advice, is to kind of dip your toes in a little bit of it, but it's just crazy. So basically this boils down into, I think in the 80s, you either collected a player or a team, or you build sets, so I built sets, And every time you went to the store, you'd beg your parents, oh, could I just have one pack of cards? And you'd just buy a pack of cards every week, or, whatever. And eventually you'd trade or whatever, your doubles with somebody else that had doubles, and you'd build your set. And that was kind of the end of it. And now there's too many things. You can't keep up. Trust me, I've half tried, and you got to just say, you know what, I'm not going to build that set, or I'm not going to collect that or whatever. But I kind of break it down into two things. So for me, the big split is vintage and modern. And that's, I guess, kind of like 1980 and newer is kind of considered modern. You got pre-war too, so anything before World War II. I have not done virtually anything with vintage or pre-war, but it's something that I do want to try a little bit. I'm going to try to add a little bit in and just get a little taste for it, but a lot harder to come by. Prices are a lot more expensive. So I spend a lot of my time in the junk wax era, but just because it's cheap for now. Prices are going up on some of that stuff. So the big split's vintage and modern. And I think then you got a couple different ways that you can collect. So you got set builders. I tend to fall into that category a little bit. It's kind of, I'd say like 60% of my collecting is sets. Maybe 50. I've been doing a lot more singles, but so set builders, you get single guys, so you're either collecting a player or collecting, a team, but just like good players, singles. You get the super collectors. So you take that somebody that's collecting a player and multiply it. There's a lot of debate on how you become a super collector, or what point you become a super collector. I think a lot of that, I think the right answer is a percentage of the player's cards. So if you have a player that hasn't, some player that was a vintage player, they only had 1 or 2 cards a year, right? So maybe 3 or whatever. Whereas now it's, a player these days could have 300 cards in one season. So I think the right answer is some sort of a percentage, but I tend to look at this as like, if you got 250, say, of one player, I call that like rookie level. Then 500 of a player, you're like a star. If you got 1,000 of one player, you're like a pro. And if you've got over 2,000 of one player, I say that's a Hall of Fame super collector. But everybody's got different things. But you think, wow, 2,000 of one player. There's guys out there. You want to check out a bonds collector? Check out Nate at Tops 85 401. He's a super bonds collector. And there's guys out there collecting everybody. Miguel Cabrera and Mark McGuire and there's, if you want to collect somebody, there's somebody else out there collecting too, and they can help you out. The community has been really good. The other thing is people are like ripping, so like just opening new packs. So those are like just ripper. I call them rippers. I like to rip some packs. I do that. Part of my collecting is ripping new stuff and some old stuff. And then you get these breakers. So there's people that'll open up stuff and you can buy into the break, and you can buy a team, you can buy a random spot, you can buy all kinds of things. So there's people out there that are breaking, that are selling spots. So you don't have to buy the whole box. You can just buy a portion of it. I haven't done any of those, but they seem intriguing. I think there's a place for them. Like if you're a team collector, then some of the ones where you can just buy your team makes sense. You don't have to buy a whole box and get all the other players and then figure out what you're going to do with all the cards you don't want. There's some people that are doing just Hall of Famers. From an investing standpoint, I think that's pretty good because those guys will be remembered forever. So you got people that just collect cards. Then you got people that collect Hall of Fame autographs as well. There's a set registry. So you get some of these cards, you can send them off to be graded. And that's just a third-party company that'll assign basically the quality of the card and kind of write down what it is. And then you got people that are kind of putting their collections into these registries and building up subsets within the total card collection. So pretty cool there. There's a bunch of drama going on right now. Somebody's swinging the numbers and doing the grading all weird, but I try not to get too deep into that. I think grading has its place. For me, actually, the biggest thing to grading is if you collect cards and your family doesn't know anything about it, a graded card will tell you exactly what the quality is, what the card is, and you can look that up and get a value on it if they have to sell that after you pass or something like that. That's a pretty cool part to the graded cards that I never even thought of before. So that's the graded and the set registry guys. Get some people doing multiple sports, not just baseball or whatever. They're doing football or basketball or doing it all or doing one or whatever. That's the beauty. You can do whatever makes you happy. You got your teams that you could collect. I tend to do Red Sox and Patriots and Celtics and Bruins. I'm just a New England guy at heart, and then you could do like I said, the player collectors. I tend to be I tend not to be as focused because I like all of baseball, and even as a Red Sox fan, I collect Yankees guys. I mean, just like Jeter's just really good, so I collect Jeter. Ricky Henderson was like my original guy. I really wanted that. Actually, look at this. I just picked this up. Couldn't be a card video without putting a card in there. So it's Ricky Henderson rookie, but this is the first card that I ever like pined over as a kid. Never thought I'd ever own it. And I have another story of the first Ricky Henderson card I picked up. And this was at the local card shop. We call those LCSs. The other day, and he had two of them, and a guy was going to buy one, and I said, well, let me see the other one. I looked at it, and like as soon as I put it in my hand, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I'm not going to give it back. Like, it was just like, I can't give this back to you. How much do you want for it? And it was $15. I mean, it looks, it's a little off, but anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But this is like the card. If you put this card in my hand and you tell me it's like $20 or under, it's mine. It's coming home with me. So that's my second one, and I'm sure there'll be more. But anyway, so so you got your players, you got certain players or whatever. But again, you just the beauty of this is you can do whatever you want. But part of that is it could be overwhelming. So another question that some people might ask is, where would you buy cards? And it used to be at the Kmart or something like that, or you could buy cards at just about anywhere in the like the 80s. But a lot of the card shops have gone away, and a lot of the stores don't carry cards anymore. So basically, you get your LCS, your local card shop, if you've got one. If you're lucky enough to do that, frequent them so that they stay in business, because they are still pretty important. I buy a lot of my supplies there. I buy a lot of my hobby boxes there. I spend a lot of money there. But that needs to be there. If you don't go in there and you buy everything online, then you don't have a spot locally that people can gather. I love going in there and just hanging out for an hour or two and just people coming in talking about cards. It's kind of like the local hub. So it's important to get things at your local card shop. The big box stores have them, Walmart, Target. They frustrate the heck out of me. Sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't. The shelves are bare. It's been getting a little bit better here this year, but what are you going to do? Some people don't have a local card shop nearby, and Walmart or Target's the only way to do it. And, they got some things there that you can only get at Walmart or Target. So they fill a niche. They're getting to a lot of people. I think they're important to getting some more kids involved. They just got to do a better job of it, in my opinion. But big boxes got stuff. eBay is kind of like the main, if you're going to buy a single card or, something like that, or a lot or whatever, eBay is really where it's at. And we use eBay a lot to determine values because they'll give you the sold. If you're doing the advanced search, they'll show you everything that's been sold in the recent history, and you can kind of get an actual price. Back in the day, we didn't have it that fast. So we really did rely on Beckett and kind of local individual markets on what prices were. But now with the internet, anybody can look up anything at any time of the day. So eBay is really where it's at. And if you're trying to get a value on something, then just search the sold listings in eBay. Card shows, those are still going on. I've been back to 3 or 4 of them, and they're really fun. And a lot of times you'll get people in the community that'll be there, and it's a good place to catch up. So card shows are still where it's at. YouTube auctions, I've been seeing a lot of this, and YouTube auctions are cool because they'll go live, just put cards up. Hey, what do you want to give me for this? $1, $2, whatever. And you can go in and hang out and chat with people, and it's kind of like a virtual card show, I guess. Same thing with Facebook groups. There's some Facebook groups out there that focus on certain things, and we'll sell cards in there. Four Sharp Corners is there's a lot of graded stuff there, and Check Out My Cards is kind of if you're looking for something, it's a little overpriced, but if you're looking to get something, it's usually there. So that's a little bit of background on what's going on. Things are just crazy. There's, tops. It used to just be tops, Fleer, Donruss, whatever, Upper Deck. And now Tops is putting out like 40 different sets a year. It's just crazy. I don't even know what the number is, but it's overwhelming. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of advice here. Okay. Number one is get in the community. The community is awesome. Chat with people, watch videos, learn, share. If you know something, share it. Just get in the community. I think you'll find that in general, most people collecting sports cards are pretty good. Another piece of advice: don't try to compete. Someone is always going to have a better card or card collection than you are. You just find what makes you happy. Get in your slot. We always been kind of saying now. I love this. These super graded, like perfect cards are so expensive, and you can get one that's just one level or two levels below that for a tenth or even less of the price sometimes. Collect the card and not the grade is what you say. If you want to check out another YouTuber, those back pages, Eric over there is awesome, and he's always saying, sell the 10s, collect the 9s. Collect the card, not the grade, that kind of stuff. So I'm a firm believer in that. That's been something I've taken to. A good looking 8 is just fine. And collect what you like. There's you can collect teams, you can collect players. When I got back in, I kept saying, what should I collect? There's so many things here. I'd go into my local card shop, and he'd been selling cards for 30 years or whatever, and I was looking for advice. What should I collect? And he just kept saying, I don't know. What tell me what you like. And so for the first 3 or 4 months, I was just having a hard time. Just like, why won't anybody tell me what to collect? What I need some advice here. And there's really one piece of advice: collect what you like. So for me, it's a lot of 80s, and I'm starting to get into some 90s inserts. It's Ricky Henderson rookies, and opening a couple new stuff. Just checking it out, and I think that's kind of where it's going right now. So I guess another piece of advice is like dip your toes in a little bit of everything. Don't get too crazy. Don't try to put it all in there. But collect what makes you happy. Try a little bit. Open a couple new packs. If you don't like it, don't do it. Grab a single. I mean, if you know what you like, then just do it. But if you're not really sure, try a little bit. See what you like. See what kind of cards you like, and go slow and just figure it out. And I think the other piece of advice that goes along with it is that may change. So right now I'm doing a lot of 90s inserts. They're just beautiful cards. Check them out if you want. But I think I'm going to get into a little bit more vintage or even some pre-war, coming up in the next year, because I've done a lot of purchasing of 90s cards, and I feel like I've got the things that I want. Maybe not all of them, but yeah. So I'm gonna try it out. You might come back to it at some point later. It's okay to not be ultra focused unless you're ultra focused. If you want to be that way, then you want to be a super collector, then go for it. But it's all about what makes you happy, not about what makes other people happy, right? So that's a really big piece of advice. The other one, set a budget. For me, this one was a little bit hard in the beginning because I didn't know what I was doing, and I was trying some things, and I mean, we have a budget at home, so it was kind of that. It was set, but I think as I look at talking with people and discussing finances, personal finances, not business stuff, but I think it's very key to set a budget and stick to it. The most successful people are doing that, and so if you look at my general advice for that, and I don't want to come off like I'm giving you financial advice and telling you what to do, but if you're looking for some general kind of guidance, I always say if you're putting away to retirement, you should put 15% of your salary away. Okay, it may seem like a lot, but really that's the number. If you want to retire and be comfortable, 15% of your salary, and then another thumb rule for me is 10% of that, no more than 10% of that should be in risky investments. You should put it in your 401k, get a blended profile. And we can discuss that at length over a beer or something, but 10% of that, no more than 10% should be risky. So that's roughly 1.5% of your salary. And that's a good place to start if you're trying to put a limit on it. And that's kind of considering that to be an investment. You could probably convince me to put another 1.5% or 2% in if you really get into cards, and you don't have a huge amount of debt, and just call that entertainment or hobby money. But the thing you need to realize here is that if you put in 1.5% of your salary and another 1.5% is hobby, you're okay with losing the other one, the hobby part of it. You'd be able to lose half of your investment and still have some salvage value over there, to put towards kind of investment. But I mean, if you're really trying to invest in cards, it's not really good advice. You really need to do it for the fun of it and the hobby of it, with a little bit of investment in the background. I mean, hopefully some of these things are going to be worth something, at some point, but I'd go into it thinking that you're going to lose at least half. Sounds crazy, but you might. And you know what? If I'm wrong and you made a bunch of money, then heck yeah, that's awesome. But if you go into it thinking you're going to lose half and you lose half, then you're not going to be upset. So just a little bit of budget advice. Keep in mind, there's a lot of people kind of this investment thing, and if you're going to come in and try to make money at it, I'd just keep flipping for fun. So if you're gonna buy some cards and sell it and try to make a little profit on it, keep it fun. Don't make it too serious. Don't try to make money at it. I've actually seen in my short period a couple of people get burnt out just trying to make money, buying and selling cards, and it's a pretty tough go of it. So keep it on the hobby side and enjoy it. Oh, the other big piece of advice is get some sort of an organization plan in place. I still do not have one. I'm working on it. But if you're going to start getting into cards, there's a lot of them. And then somebody says, "Oh, you have the card?" And it's like, I don't know. I can't find it. Maybe I don't have it. And then you buy it again. So then you start buying cards over and over again that you get doubles and triples and quadruples. So I'm working on a system. Hopefully I'll have a video on that soon here. But all right, I'm going to end this here because we're already at 22 minutes. So I guess let's just to recap, is the biggest stuff is there's a lot of things out there. Okay. And so dip your toes, have fun, keep it within budget. And I think the number one thing is get in the community. People have so much knowledge to share, and you can scratch your card itch just by watching somebody else do some stuff, and it keeps you keeps you within budget, if you will. So get in the community. There's so many awesome YouTubers out there. I mentioned a couple, and it's just off the top of my mind, but Baseball Collector Mike, those back pages, Baseball Card Junkies, that's really what got me into it. Nate and Eric, that's Titanic Taters and Tops for 85 401. There's just so many guys, like Jeff Airtime's doing a bunch of stuff. If you need a laugh, you got to check out Pepino Man. That's a no-brainer. MP Fox is awesome. There's a guy and his son opening cards. They do a really good job. Stof Sports, STOF Sports is pretty cool. He's kind of a funny dude if you're looking for sarcasm. Bob Lewis has got a bunch of stuff. And again, I'm going to miss a whole bunch of people, but just get in the community and check it out. That's my biggest piece of advice. So here's how I end up my videos. Actually, here's another piece of advice. Make some videos. Share what you're getting. Just share it around. We'd love to see what you're doing. So here's how I finish up mine. If you're opening up anything, best of luck to you. And don't forget to connect. That means get into the community. So I hope you enjoyed this. I really appreciate you sticking with me for 25 minutes or so. And love the hobby. We'll catch you later.